Hello YouTube, and welcome to the second episode of Pearls of Wisdom. The first one featured the Kyriakos Grizzly, and for this second entry, we are going to tackle a somewhat bigger fish, in the sense that he's even more of a meme, while at the same time being someone that, in my opinion, is full of wisdom and full of things that we can all learn from. And I'm talking, of course, about Eric Bugenhagen, aka Rick the Stick, aka Ricky the Eagle Sticky Boogs, whatever you want to call him. He has a gazillion nicknames because he comes up with a new one every 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to Rick, I personally am the type of guy who started following him because of Alpha Destiny, and I'm sure that many of you guys are in the same boat. When he was during his entire underground period, I wasn't really aware of his existence. But nowadays, he's become a sort of a mainstream phenomenon, and therefore, he is, in the eye of many, the example of the Chad, of the Alpha. While at the same time, strangely, being also taken as sort of a joke, meaning that he is being memed all around the place. And when that happens to me, it shows that we're dealing with someone that's interesting. And if there's one thing in entertainment in particular that you don't want to be, or you don't want to actually become, it's to be someone who is boring. Rick is far from boring, but I think that because of his entire gimmick and persona of someone who screams and is very energetic, people just widely overlook the things he say because they think it's all part of the show. But I think that today we are going to see that in the words of Rick the Stick, there is a lot of things that go way beyond just the showmanship of a man who is hyped up on caffeine and is trying to entertain people. Let us start with the most obvious one, the one that gave this video its title, the one that people repeat all the time, and it's become sort of a mantra, a super meme, if you will, and that is the mindset. Rick is often caught saying that it's a mindset, it's a mindset. What does that even mean? It's one of those things that is repeated so many times that you stop looking at a reason for the existence of the phrase and you just take it at face value. Okay, it's a mindset. It's a solution to everything in life. What is the answer to the existence of humans? Some would tell me 42 and some would tell me it's a mindset, bro. And you would be correct because in reality, this is the solution to existence and to, in reality, everything that humans do. Whenever you're going to try to do something, what is going to make the difference between success or failure? What is going to determine whether you're going to actually do it or not? The mindset. It starts and ends there. And I think that too many people overlook it because it's repeated too often. I think that nowadays we live in a mindset culture where we just greatly accept the importance of it, but because it's something that we were born into, we are somehow ignorant of its mechanisms. So let's observe the mechanisms, because I think that Rick is actually widely aware of them. That is in reality the question, the formula and equation of willpower. If there's one thing that Rick has a ton of, it's willpower. And interestingly enough, that's what most people lack nowadays. It's why I told you that we're living in a weird paradox. You know it's a mindset, but your mindset most likely sucks. And it's the same for most people. We all know how important willpower is, but we as a species even widely lack willpower. I would say that will is something that is going down with every single generation. Why? Well, I'm not going to get into an explanation as of today, but I think that if we want to restore that willpower, we can take a look at Rick. Because now we have an anti-willpower culture. We've been told too many times that it's a mindset, it's just willpower, bro. But we don't really know how to actually achieve that, so it makes us resentful. Just take a look at all of the people who detest self-improvement because they see it as a scam. Why? Well, first off, because some people actually do scam others based on their ability to sell you something that is going to better your life, which for the most part just hinges on it's a mindset, but you have to pay them to actually hear that. And on top of that, it's true also that when you lack said mindset and you're faced with someone who has it but is incapable of telling you how to do it or to get it for yourself, it's nothing but just a hindrance. It's just annoying. And sadly, The books himself is not the best teacher when it comes to that, because I think he doesn't care. He has the mindset, he'll tell you it's a mindset, he'll show you the way, but if you don't get it, you don't fucking get it, and that's it. He'll just shrug his shoulders. And there is some grace, there is some nobility in that. Because at the end of the day, those who are going to make it will make it, and the others will just be failures. Now, if you are in that boat, or if you're just interested in hearing my thoughts on this, let us discuss said mindset. What is that mindset? Well, it's that willpower, it's that difference between winners and losers. It's what makes or breaks athletes and natural bodybuilders in a sense. I've always believed that. It doesn't really matter the type of genetics you're gifted. Yeah, sure, if you have a good hand, you're going to have facilities building muscle. But the determining factor that is going to actually dictate whether or not you are going to make it and make it big is that mindset. And therefore, this also means that if I take your spirit and I plug you into a different body, you should be able to build that body regardless of its specs or of its qualities. And on the flip side, it also means that if you are someone who is greatly gifted, but you don't have that mindset, you're not going to go anywhere. And it's something I've seen in my life times and times again. Weaklings, wimps and losers who had garbage genetics, but had that mindset of sticking to it, got much further than people who are just blessed by God but had no mindset at all. And so it seems to me that in this era where everyone is lacking willpower, because we're all apparently weaklings and wimps, this is the best time ever to develop it, because we are in dire need of it, but also because we have the highest incentive. So it's something to keep in mind. Again, for the people who don't have that mindset, understand that this means that you are in a prime position to actually get it. And it's absolutely important that you get it. It's the reason why I'm not that bothered and annoyed by the mantra of it's a mindset and it's a mindset. Rick says it because it's part of the gimmick again. The fanboys repeat it without really understanding it. But for the average lifter, it's something to embrace and to actually put into action, not just to say, because before building a body, the number one thing that a lifter must grow is his mindset. And it's a sentiment I've seen echoed pretty much across YouTube fitness, at least by top level naturals, meaning that if you are going to be someone who's going to spend a lot of time lifting weights, you are better off starting with a routine that is maybe not optimal, but that is going to make you strong up there and build fortitude. I know I did it, I know Rick did it, I know many other people did it. When we got started, the first thing we were thinking about was not to build the body, it was to build the spirit. Because once the body catches up, you're done, the job is done. But if the spirit remains undergrown, now you're going to run into trouble. Now you're going to be the type of person that is going to get to, I don't know, intermediate stage and they're going to give up. Why? You don't have the mindset. So your body outgrew your mind. You always want to have a bigger and stronger mind and spirit than the body. That way you're constantly going to grow. It's funny, we talk about muscle building and we don't want asymmetries. We don't want to have a muscle bigger than the other. Well, I can tell you one thing. There is no such thing as having too big of a mindset. The mindset can never be big enough. Just look at Rick. You think he's big? Imagine if we could actually weight or measure his mindset. It would fill an entire house. Why? He's working on it constantly. And therefore it also keeps growing. And he himself keeps growing. And it's the reason why also it shines through. It's why I also opened the video with the mindset, is because it truly is something that sticks to the Rick, because it defines him to a great extent. If you were to tell me, or ask me rather, what makes Eric Bugenhagen great, I would tell you, yeah, it's his mind. I would never tell you that it's his body. I think that it's his mind that convinces his body that he can do everything, that he's great, that he's going to push the ball further and further, and therefore it becomes reality. You will never see the other way around. Your body will never surprise your spirit into an achievement. It's not possible. Why? Because thoughts precede actions. You're always going to precede whatever thing you're going to do with the idea. And therefore, if the idea is strong, the conviction is present, and the confidence is actually vibrant, you're going to get it done. It always starts there. So, in a sense, Eric Bugenhagen, I cannot pronounce his fucking name. Let's call him Rick. Rick is a philosopher in a sort. He has, in a sense, mapped up the perfect formula to build people up, starting from the most important point, which is the mindset and the spirit. It's not something that he would tell you himself, I believe, but it's something that you actually have to keep in mind. Now, that being said, it's also important to remember that Rick's mindset is not everyone's mindset. That's the reason why he says it's a mindset. He never says it's the mindset. He never tells you that it's the one type of mindset and you have to espouse it. He never tells you that you have to become like him, because his methods are extreme. His dedication to this entire thing, to this entire lifting weights and the sport that he loves so much, all of that is connected to his identity to a great extent. And it also shows in his methods. I'm not personally convinced that Rick gives good advice. Meaning that as someone who is actually quite versed in lifting and in programming, etc., a lot of his advice that he gives to people is really either all the way to the right or all the way to the left. It's never balanced, but that's because it's his mindset. His mindset is like this. When you take advice from someone, keep in mind you take advice from a spirit, not a body. And the spirit of Bugs is completely insane crazy. So he's going to give you crazy bulking advice. He's going to give you crazy training advice. Why? Because it applied to him. His mindset has grown to the point that these methods actually work for him. But it's something to keep in mind, because it might not apply to you. And on top of that, you don't really want it to apply to you. There is a lesson here. And that lesson is that even though it is Rick that encouraged you to build your mindset, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to build it after his plans. You're going to have to create something of your own. I see too many people making that mistake. They get inspired by someone, and instead of just taking that inspiration and making something new of themselves, they just copy the person. Well, that won't get you anywhere because you're not that person, right? Stop asking, hey, can I look like him? Can I be as strong as him? The answer is no. You can only be as good as you. Stop trying to compare yourself with others. Do you think that Eric Bugenhagen looked at someone else and thought, I want to be that guy? I don't think so. I think that Rick wakes up every day thinking, I am Eric Bugenhagen and that is enough. And if anything, the only person he wants to be is that. You want to get into a point where you are so confident and you are so connected with your mindset that the only person you want to be is you.
Don't wait until you ask your barrier!
If you can get to the day where you wake up and you think, I would never trade my place in existence with anyone else in the entire universe, then you've made it. You've gotten to the point that now you are one. The spirit and the body is one. And that started, as I said, with the mindset, but also the willingness to not become a copycat, to find your own calling. Because I can tell you one thing, that day I just described, if you keep chasing other people's mindsets, it's never going to happen. So take it from the Rick. Look at what he's built and try to get something aligned with it that is not the exact same, because you will never actually be able to do that. It's sort of the tragedy of strong individualities. Rick is typically the example of someone who has a very strong individuality. And the problem with that type of person is that they have charisma for the most part, and they also attract people. They're like a big planet or a black hole. Their gravity pull is going to attract smaller planets and smaller sources of light even, and it's going to suck it in. But the issue is that the existence and the goal in life of any planetary being is not to be sucked into a black hole. Actually, that's the last thing you want. You want to be able to do your own thing on your side and keep growing and keep expanding, and one day, hopefully, shelter some life. So, be careful, because I know for a fact that Rick, for example, is not necessarily aware of that. Many people who have that charisma are not aware of that. They're not aware of what they do. They are doing their own thing. You can't blame them for that, but because they're so great, they are going to attract people and they're going to just dim their lights, because they're like a flame. And moths are the fanboys. Moths are the people with the underdeveloped mindset. They flock to the flame, but it burns them. It's not to the benefit of the moth to get that close to the flame. The moth needs to look at the flame and use it to see around. The flame is a source of light. It shows you what's possible. It shows you the possibilities. But if you just dive into it head first, you're just going to burn your wings. And that's stupid, because it means that you will never birth a strong individuality of your own. See, that's what I was saying already, is that you have that one strong guy, he attracts others, but because these people become subservient, they never become the guy. So by trying to become a copycat and trying to copy someone else's mindset, you end up with no mindset of your own. What you want instead is to let that individuality that he possesses inspire you to actually acquire independence. Another term I would use to describe Ricky the Ego Boogs is independence. He is his own man, he stands by himself, and I think he is pretty much self sufficient. He doesn't need others, he doesn't need the approval of others, and that's what we should all aspire to be. Independence is a key aspect of the set of qualities you are going to need in life as a man. If you're not independent and you are a dependent, you are also a hindrance, you are also a weight, and therefore you are not useful. You want to be as independent as possible, and that is going to be only through one way only. It is the ability to separate yourself from the rest of the world, build your mindset on your own, and then come back, then apply the mindset. That's the way it's done. And for the most part, I have found, and I'm thinking that Rick, I'm not sure if he's going to ever see this video, but would also agree with that the way to build that mindset is not just through mantra. See, I told you at the start of the video, we are living in an anti-willpower culture, and that's very simple. It's because the people who preach willpower cannot explain to you how it's done. They'll just tell you, oh, just do it. It's the infamous slogan, just do it. Instead of it's a mindset, it's just do it. But the issue is that just do it is not a solution. It's a mindset is. Because in the mindset is the built-in mechanism to obtain it. And how do we do that? Are you going to meditate? Are you going to look at yourself in the mirror and keep repeating, I'm great, I'm a superhero, like all of these idiots on Instagram tell you to do? No, you're going to train. And you train what? The muscles, of course, the body, but most importantly, the will. Because every time you get something done, you are going to bend yourself to your own will, you are going to force yourself to get it done, and you are reinforcing that will to the point that one day it's going to be seamless. Because the beauty of willpower is that once you have it to a sufficient level, it stops existing because it's not needed anymore. You don't even feel the resistance anymore because there is no resistance. We're going to get to that point later, but I believe that the pinnacle of willpower is to not need willpower at all. So that's how we develop that mindset. It's that endless repetition. And you will find that the way you build that mindset again is going to be entirely unique to you. It's the reason why I think 3 or 4 years ago, Rick made a video explaining the way he trained. Because people were curious. Why? Because he trains like a maniac, 1, and 2, because it was weird. It was foreign. People had never seen it before. Why? It's unique. It's his own special way. There's a reason why I think that the Bulgarian method, the Wisconsin method, and the popularization of it is not a good thing. It's a type of training method that is only going to work for a certain type of individuals like Rick. For the vast majority of the population, it won't work. But I must say that the fact that he himself, quote unquote, came up with something like this is again a show of independence. Sadly, when people follow that show, they're not independent themselves. But it was a nice change of pace because if you look at the way everyone trains the same way. For the most part, there's almost no difference. Or if someone has a difference, it's going to be a gimmick, something that they just pull out of their ass to just reinvent the wheel, which paradoxically also points to the fact that they have a mindset, but their mindset is one of a merchant. They're trying to sell you something. Rick's gimmick was never created to sell you a program because you can't sell his gimmick. It's horribly unglamorous. It's not going to make any money at all. But there is a lesson in that as well. You will notice that most people who give good advice, or at least honest advice for lifting, have their own thing. Meaning that they don't really care if people like it and they're not going to try to make money out of it, but they have their specs. They have their one thing that they like to do, and it is in a sense unique to them. Every single page I follow whose advice I like and I welcome are people who think differently than me. And Rick is no exception because in our differences is to be found wisdom. If everyone thought like me, this world would be a boring ass place. It's the reason why I like the book so much. Our training methods are completely opposed, and yet I can see that through his methods, his individuality shines. And it doesn't really matter if that leads people to misunderstand the way he trains. It at the end of the day will not make a difference because it's tailored to you. If you have a suit and you feel and look great and people tell you they don't understand, or worse, they take off the suit and they put it on themselves and it doesn't fit, does it mean that the suit doesn't fit you or doesn't look good for you? No, it doesn't look good on them. So build that suit. That mindset is going to be also that suit in a sense that you're going to carry on your body around your corporal envelope every day of your life. It's your own. You don't need other people to approve of it. You don't even need them to like it because they don't matter. And no matter how other people perceive it, as long as it works, stick by it proudly. That is the mindset again. The mindset is a question also of self-acceptation. You might find that you're going to develop a type of mindset that is not going to be aligned with this word or people are going to disapprove of. But if it serves you and it makes you a better person in your word and you believe that 100%, then stick to it. That is also a lesson in a sense of self-love. A self-love that I think Rick exemplifies as well, meaning that the guy loves himself. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm certain that if I went to France and I showed the books to 100 people, French men, the guy, I think that all of them would be like, oh, yeah, no, he's arrogant, or he has hubris, or no, I think he's vain or conceited. Why? Because what they see and perceive as arrogance is in reality the behavior of someone who has accepted himself 100%. It's the reason why when I see his antics on camera, maybe it's just for show, but most importantly, it's a message. It is what happens when you like yourself to the point that you're not really concerned whether people are going to receive it properly or not. And I can tell you one thing, once you get to that point, life is pretty fucking sweet. Because all of that anxiety of others receiving you well or liking what they see, it just stops mattering. It's my life, it's my mindset and suit. I don't care if people are going to actually vibe with it or not. And the few that are going to actually vibe with it are going to be the good ones. Look at Rick. He doesn't associate himself with many people, but for the most part, when he does, something clicks, something happens. Why? Because he finds his people. You might be someone who is surrounded by friends or even family members, but they're not really connected with you, and you don't really like them at the end of the day. Why? You're not true to yourself. How could you find people that are going to be good for you and you're going to like and enjoy if you don't like and enjoy yourself? So also take that message from Rick and his glorious mustache, do what you want and get to the point where you're going to be able to courageously keep doing it in the face of whatever is going to come your way and whatever disapproval you're going to receive from the world. Because once you do that, that's when you become special, unique, and you start pushing the boundaries of what is possible. No one has ever accomplished anything special by sticking to the rules or trying to be in the norm. It's in the word, the norm. You should try your hardest to never be normal because normal people are boring and for the most part mediocre. Because if you're in the middle of the bell curve, sure you don't suck, but you're also not special or great. And I'm guaranteeing you that you deserve to be there. You deserve to be in that portion. And Rick is in that portion. It's the reason why he's pushed his strength and size into domains that few have deemed impossible in the past. He opened the eyes of many people in reality to what the human body was capable of, which is also the reason why he attracted a ton of detractors. But I think that the common thing that all of the Boog's haters have in common is that they don't really dislike him. They dislike his mindset and they dislike the lessons he's taught them without even saying them, because Rick is not the type of guy that is going to berate you like I tend to do, calling you a wimp and trying to motivate you by lighting that fire under your ass, because he really doesn't care. But that makes him even more dangerous and annoying in the eyes of people because he takes it for granted. He takes it for granted that you're going to get it done, and if you can't get it done, then it was just written that you are never going to actually go anywhere. That, in the heart of losers, is the most painful of barbs. It's something they cannot tolerate. Again, it's aligned with that culture of hatred towards self-improvement. You know who really hates self-improvement? The type of man that needs it the most, because it reminds them of the efforts they have to put in, and most importantly, and more painful, it reminds them of what they are. When someone who is not happy and in love with themselves looks at Rick, they feel bad. Why? They see someone who has what they want, but they also perceive the road ahead and what it's going to take to get there, because we're going to actually follow that up and actually cover that as well. Rick wasn't born like this. I know that we have this idea of alpha and chads and you're supposed to be born out of the womb with perfect confidence and like a massive dong, but in reality is that no one is like this. It's a fabrication of the mind, and in reality, Rick is the same. Look at him when he was wrestling and he was 17. Look at him as he grew up. He even shared stories of his past. I don't know how he sees himself, but I know that he's expressed in the past some level of disdain towards the entire alpha, beta, sigma, whatever the fuck men call themselves nowadays. And I think it shows something. It shows that his philosophical understanding of the mindset is one based entirely on merit, willpower, and the ability of the individual to prove their worth or to fail altogether, all based on their mindset and their ability to determine whether they're going to make it or not based on their testicles, their cojones, as we say in Spanish. Rick has a massive set of cojones, and you should try also to get one as well, because it's very important in life. It might, however, lead you to do a ton of stupid things. It's what I like about the Boogs as well. He's not perfect. And he's even very far from perfect. He's done stuff like eating so much garlic he puked on himself. He drank raw honey, which I do not advocate. He did go mad for God knows how many years. He maxed out and blew out his knees twice. Actually, he hurt his knee again very recently. Why? Well, because the guy is zinzin, as we say in French. C'est un lunatique. But it's his mindset. You can't tell me he's stupid, but I will retort to that it's his stupidity. He gets to be stupid because it's what got him that far. He's always giving it his all. And again, for an outside observer, especially someone like me, who's very conservative, I'm a bit of a prima donna, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Je suis un peu une chochotte, as we say in French. I see that and I can only respect it because even though I see it as self-destructive, it's his path. If he has decided to bulldoze through life, someone like me who's on a bike and who's avoiding the bushes and trying to take the smartest path is not going to give him any lessons. We have taken different paths in life. And I can respect his path because he is always giving it his all. It creates some problems because he's always balls to the fucking wall. I think like a year ago he was peeing blood because he was working so hard. I think he got rhabdo. I don't know about you. If I peed blood, you would find me somewhere like in a fetal position on the ground, just waiting for it to stop. I think the guy was back training 2 days afterwards. This is what I'm talking about. It's that relentless mindset. And it's, by the way, the mindset of a champion. He said so in a video as well, that for the people who don't understand that and they think it's stupid or it's too much over the top, well, this also maybe means that you've never been a champion. And he's correct. I personally have never been a champion in anything. I was a good swimmer, but I never got a title, a national title. Why? I never pushed it. I never had that spirit. And maybe you don't have that spirit. But the lesson to take from that is the fact that you can build a spirit that is going to serve you similarly. You don't have to go as absolute as he is. You don't have to be as extreme as he is. Because there's many ways to be a champion. But the way he's done it is like this. And therefore, he serves as a great example of someone who is constantly pushing forward. He's demonstrating that as well right now. He blew out his knee again. I think the next day he was posting videos, walking around, screaming. He's back lifting for the upper body. I know many people that if they blew out a ligament that they had surgery on in the past, they would mop around for a month because it's depressing. But what is the point of that? What does it bring into your life to do that? Fucking nothing. So it's better to, again, grab your testicles, okay, like give them a good tuck in, and then just keep going. Don't let it slow you down. The next day you're back into it. Why? Because any setbacks that you perceive as a punishment from the wood, in reality is just a test for the mindset. If the mindset is strong enough, you're going to be back at it and you're going to defy adversity times and times again. You're going to get back from injuries times and times again. It's something I've done also. I was injured all around. I had terrible injuries in my knees, in my back, in my elbows, in my wrist, but I came back every single time stronger. Why? It's a mindset. I know that there is a version of me or someone else who would have had the same injury who would have just given up and said, oh, it's not worth it because I'm getting injured, so it must mean I have to stop. Well, that's true if and only if you accept it. So again, it's those two dimensions. Which one do you want to live in? The one where everything bad happens, you just give up and you quit? The one where you have no mindset? Or the one where every time something happens, you see it as a chance, an opportunity to get better? Rick is in that dimension. I'm in that dimension as well. We're not taking the same path, but I'm telling you right now that you should join us. because this is the good dimension. The other one is the she dimension, where you amount to nothing and you become a black belt zoomer or whatever the fuck. I have mustache hair on my tongue, which I guess is appropriate for a rig video. Now, that was for the mindset. And if we're going to keep talking about the pearls of wisdom that Bugenhagen bestowed upon us, I also want to talk about another golden tidbit, as he would say, that he shared a long time ago, but that he exemplifies with his training, and that is the just do this approach. Video that usually when someone gives you training advice and they start with just, it's garbage advice. It's going to be terrible because they're going to be reductionist, they're going to ignore important aspects, they're going to try to shrink everything down. But there is also some truth in what minimalist experts or trainers have to say. Now, I don't know if Brooks would actually describe himself as a minimalist, but his methods certainly are. And in a video called Enough Just Do This, if you have seen it, maybe you remember the video, he shared his mindset when it comes to lifting. And even though, again, it's completely opposed to what I believe, I think that there is great advice to be received there. There is some truth to these words. In the video, he explained that between a program with 5 exercises that you do all the time at 100%, and one with 15 that you half-ass, it's always best to prioritize the first one. Why? Because you prioritize intensity. And on paper, if you look at the math, it sounds impossible. It sounds stupid. How can 5 be greater than 15? But in truth, it is. Meaning that especially for novices, if you're going to have the type of workout that is going to be 2 hours, where you go from machine to machine and you're just like, by the third exercise, you're tired and you're not into it and you look at your phone, you're wasting your time because you're not in it. You're just going through the motions. That workout is not going to produce greatness. And on top of that, you're very highly likely to just skip that workout altogether. So what is the solution for that? Shrink. But in this case, you're not cutting off anything of importance. In reality, you're making it higher quality. It's like if you're making, what is the term? Like pancake mix, and it's too watery. So what do you do then? Well, you dump the water. The water is the useless part. You want the mix to be the thing you're going to put in the pan to make delicious pancakes. If you add the water, you're going to have shitty, watered down pancakes that no one is going to want to eat. Maybe the dogs, and that's if they're not picky. So, again, cut down on the water. Reduce. That's for most programs. I think that is the reason why I said that the way Brooks trains was refreshing back in the days, because he came into the game where all of these bodybuilding programs were around that were, again, way too much. At the same time, he was also aligned with what the powerlifters were saying, but he was a nice in between, meaning that he wasn't telling people, oh, just don't do isolation, although he does have a bias against them. For the most part, what he was saying is, focus rather on certain exercises you want to get better at and put your energy there. If you have energy left afterwards, sure, do something else. But a terrible mistake that I see many people do is they have that like bread and butter lift, but they have 15 other movements afterwards, so they're going to just send back that lift just to be able to go through the workout. Well, now you forgot that this was the most important thing. So you lost the plot in a sense. And that's most programs, by the way, who don't look at intensity enough. Most programs that have you do way too much with a focus on the pump, which makes you look good temporarily, but if you want to become thick and succulent, you're going to have to increase tonnage over time on specific lifts instead. Another example that the books gave is the fact that many people, again, are going to do a few exercises. They're going to get like some lat pull downs done, they're going to get a good pump going, they're going to look at themselves in the mirror, and they're going to think, oh, I look pretty good. Then they go home an hour later, the pump is gone, and they look like shit. Why? They focus on the pump. They focus on the instant gratification of the visual aspect of the muscle, but that's not how you grow. you grow by actually challenging the muscle. So instead, why not do one heavy lat movement that is going to get you exhausted, and that is going to actually lead to more growth down the line. And on top of that, on top of being more efficient, if you know what you're doing, you're also going to find that it's so much easier to get it done. Because now you're going to do a program that is sort of sustainable in a sense and much more reasonable. The worst thing you can do when you get started, especially as a novice, is to have too big of an aspiration. Not in terms of goal physique, but in terms of what you're going to put in. It's the reason why if you look at my novice program, it's like the bare minimum. I have you do the bare minimum. Why? Because you are the bare minimum. You're just getting started. Your mindset is a baby chick. You want it to become a massive phoenix at some point, but it's going to need some time to grow. If you take the baby chick and you dump it off a cliff, it's just going to die. So there's no point in doing that. Instead, pick things that you love. That's another great message that I received from the books. You see, if you pick things that you love in your program, you'll be able to do them with zero discipline. And that's something that he claimed as well, which is almost shocking because it's a guy who talks about willpower, who talks about the mindset, but at the same time, he tells you that he has no discipline. So what's up with that? Is this a contradiction? Well, no, it's actually wisdom. Wisdom on the level of the Buddha, in a sense. It's like we're this close to nirvana here. It's almost a renunciation of the word, a renunciation of something that people see as vital, which at the same time allows you to grasp it in its entirety. By renouncing discipline and willpower, you're going to have absolute and ultimate discipline and willpower. So how is that possible? Well, I'm sure you've heard me say that relying on motivation is a mistake because motivation is a fleeting fire. Once the fire is gone, what do you do next? You're going to just freeze to death. So you should rely on discipline instead. Discipline is that cold burn. But there is also a possibility of not even having to rely on discipline at all. And that is the true wisdom that the books was sharing in that video that he made about the very topic of discipline. Now, bear with me here. It's going to sound complicated and convoluted, but at the end of the day, we're taking advice from the books. How complicated can it be? Here, his point that I'm going to try and translate for you guys is that if you find ways to make your training exciting, right? You pick exercises that you love, you cut down the things that are not needed, the extra water, and you are again left with a compact thing, a compact program. You're going to get to a point where you'll never dread it. There is no way in hell you're not going to want to get into the gym and get it done because you're only going to do what you want to do. By the way, it's the same for diets. I see too many people who have their diet stuffed with things they hate and then they wonder why they can't stick to it. Well, it's because you eat things you don't like, dummy. Why don't you eat things that you enjoy? There is a gazillion actual aliments, as we say in French, food types that are available for you. So why would you put things in your diet plan you don't like? Same for your program. Why would you do it? Well, don't do it. Now you get to a point where you'll always enjoy it. And it's important because we all do this as a hobby. A reminder for the diehards, I am a tryhard as well, but it's important that we remind ourselves that at the end of the day, it's something that we do for fun. We do that for fulfillment. It's not a job. And it's especially important for those of us that see it as a way of life. Because you would think, okay, the more serious you become about lifting, the more serious you're going to take it, surely. But that's not true. Being able to be lighter in your approach, to be more detached in your approach. That is that renunciation I was talking about, which paradoxically is also going to make you a more passionate lifter and a better lifter, because if you're going to do it for a very long time, doesn't that mean that it's very important for you to love it? How are you supposed to stick to it for 20 years if you're not going to have a good time? So the most important thing is that we enjoy what we do. I know what you're going to tell me. And H, where is the discipline in this? We're going to get to that. Let me just remind you that Rick has been training for 20 years plus. He's been training for longer than many of you have been alive. How is it possible? I've made a video a long time ago called No One Trains for 10 Years, and that's true. The vast majority of natural lifters never put in their mandatory 10 years. Why? Because they give up at some point, and I think that's one of the reasons. They rely on discipline. But what is discipline in their world, in their brain? What is their mindset connected with discipline? Well, discipline to them is the ability to do something they don't want to do. But what does that tell us about them? It means that they don't like lifting because they need discipline to force themselves to do that. So there is a problem here. And I understand that the constant battle against like the struggle, it's very hardcore, right? It's very romantic and it has been romanticized by pro bodybuilders especially, who are going to puke in a garbage can and they're going to be on the ground and are going to growl, etc. That's all of that shit is theatrics. If they actually do approach lifting like this, it's a very toxic approach because it's not sustainable and it's not practical. It's not practical to constantly have to convince yourself to do something because chances are that at one point, this thing you call discipline is going to fail you, just like motivation is going to fail you. But the point of discipline was that it was supposedly unfallible, just like willpower. I told you, you're supposed to get to a point where your mindset is so strong that your willpower is seamless. You don't even need to use it anymore. But how do you get there? Well, you get there when you have reduced the requirements for the use of willpower to the point that it's barely needed anymore. And again, how do you do that? You do something that you love doing. You find that method, you find that training program that you're going to enjoy the most. Because if you love what you do, it will become an automatism. And this is when true discipline takes place. Discipline is not the dreading of the action. Discipline is the excitement. It's the feeling of just wanting to get into the gym. You can't wait to get into the gym. When you are at work or when you're just studying, the thing you're thinking about the most is, when am I going to get my ass into the gym? And you could tell me, well, that's not discipline. That's because you have, again, an almost Spartan or a Spartiate, I don't know what adjective to use, view of what discipline is. You think discipline has to be painful, but you've been sold on a bunk idea. Discipline is not painful. The pain is what comes after you have actually experienced and actually used your discipline. The using of the will is not something painful. I know I use the term to bend the self to the will, but again, that's a fabrication. It's a romantic view of what happens. How could your will, which is you, bend you to your will? It makes no sense. I'm getting into philosophical topics. I've already spoken about that in my Nietzschean philosophy videos that you can watch if you're interested. But if you don't fall for that trap, you do something that you love, now you can save your energy for the actual workout. And now we have entered a mode where we build instead of destroy. Instead of having a mindset of coming into the gym, hating it, doing something you hate, going home, hating the way it makes your body feel, the DOMs, hating the recovery aspect, and then doing it again, we are constantly doing something positive for ourselves. We are building that tower instead of just digging a hole into the ground. All of that based on the advice of someone who is, at first glance, a minimalist, but the best type. Because Bugs is, in a sense, a spiritual minimalist. He is not really a utilitarian minimalist, if that makes sense. Now, we just spoke about building. We just spoke about having a proper approach with discipline. But what else could we build? And what else does the Bugs want us to build? Well, I think that the third and last point we're going to end on is the building of the pride. Pride, which is a very important aspect. But we're talking about real pride, not the fake pride that you see many people have. You see, Rick is not a fitness guru. And actually, he said that in the past also, that he didn't want to become a guru. And to me, it also speaks to his character as a man. He doesn't want to be the type of person that is going to have a flock or an army of fanboys following him. He doesn't want to be the guy who is going to say something and it becomes gospel. It still happens because humans are the way they are, and when they see a grand figure, they are going to attach themselves to it entirely. But it was never his intention. And in a sense, it's the reason why he feels so real and so raw. Even though he might be just gimmicky and a wrestler, you can still sense that there is some reality there. There is some honesty there. The Bugs is 100% more real than many people on this platform that call themselves real, that talk to you as if they were their own man, when in reality they are nothing but a puppet trying to sell you something or incept an idea into your brain. And in a sense, you could even argue that Rick doesn't try to be virtuous or likable. He's never had that personality of trying to push morality on people or to push certain aspects. It's why his methods are so welcomed, by the way. He does believe in them 100%. He does believe that if you don't do it, you're going to waste your time. But at no point is he going to tell you that it's that way or the highway, or that it's the only one that works. It's his confidence that pushes him to be prideful of his method, and many people are going to take that as dogmatism, but it's not. You see, the pride of a man is something that is first and foremost reserved for himself. And if you are the type of person that manages to do that, it's going to serve you greatly. Many men nowadays, their pride is an external factor that is in relation with others. So they want others to see them as proud, and they use their pride, again, as a way to get people in check, meaning that they're also very easy to challenge. Their ego is very fragile. It's that new type of super masculine men you see nowadays, which in my opinion are not very masculine at all because they're not self-contained. You need and you want to be both a man that cannot restrain himself and a man of great containment. And I think that Rick, for the most part, is the first one, but also the second. The first one is more evident because he's always talking, he's always very energetic, so it's the one that's the most obvious. But I think that's mostly because he's a wrestler. It's something that he learned from wrestling. But there's another thing that he learned from wrestling, and that is the mask. You see, I think that there is more to Boogs than he actually wants you to think. And it's the reason why I made this video, by the way. People in this entry that I'm going to make are there for a reason. It's because they are a source of wisdom, whether they want to admit it or not. Now, it's my own interpretation as well, of course. I don't know what's beyond the mask, but I know there is a mask. And I think that he even plays on that because, again, you could tell me it's just the wrestler doing that. He has this entire thing with the multiple personalities. And to me, as someone who loves symbolism, I cannot let that slide. To me, it speaks to something. And I wonder to myself, did we get to see the real Rick? Which mask is the real one? And which mask in reality is not a mask at all? But this is not the important part here. The important is the existence of the mask altogether. Why does he wear the mask? Well, he wears the mask because, again, he doesn't really want you to see him for who he truly is. That's that containment I was talking about. And every man is like this. You need to have that secrecy in your heart, and that is pride, by the way. People who go around boasting, that's not pride, that's bravado, you want to call whatever you want, but it's something different. Pride is that inner sun that shines inside you, that you and only you are privy of, but that others can perceive and are going to be attracted by it. It's the reason why, again, Boogs has so many fanboys. Have you ever questioned yourself, how is someone like him, who is not trying to be mainstream, who is not trying to be liked, who is a little bit coarse and rough around the edges, how does someone like him have so many people follow him? Well, I believe that it's because he represents a masculine archetype, something that is very attractive to young men because they wish to become like him. And I think that he is a nice contrast with all of the other masculine gurus that you see on this platform nowadays. Dudes that are going to make a great show of their pride, that are going to expose it to the world, but that in reality, by doing so, are only creating an army of hero clones who are going to also engage in that same type of behavior, and it's just an endless mechanism that creates, in my opinion, Untermensch. Whereas, if we are going to strive towards independence, what we need instead is to look at that independence and that pride in someone like Rick and try to recreate it in ourselves. Not carry around our necks a necklace with a mirror that reflects the sun in someone else's chest, something that many people do. Take 5 seconds to reflect on what I just said, because there is a truth in that, a truth that speaks to what this world has become and what many men nowadays have become. If you turn out to be someone with that type of necklace around your neck, however, keep in mind one thing. You will never manage to gain the respect and admiration of people like the Boogs. I know guys like him. He only respects strength, meaning that he only respects men that he can perceive have that sun in them as well. And if he sees that what shines in them is his own pride and they're just reflecting, he is going to immediately detest them. And it's something that actually was immediately evident with his interactions with some people. Like, you clearly can tell that when Boogs perceives someone to be a wimp or someone who is not their best self and who is too subservient, he immediately dislikes them. And there's no way around that. Now, it's a good thing. Because if you tell yourself, okay, I'm typically the type of man who's like this, or in your everyday life, men of great value give you poor treatments, they mistreat you, or they don't even give you the time of day, it should be a lesson. They're not doing that because they're mean. They're doing that because you're not where you're supposed to be yet. And therefore, they cannot treat you like equals. Again, it's just me trying to, peel the mask off of the books. But to me, I think that Rick is typically the type of person that is only going to consider you a friend or a peer if you are his equal or stronger than him. If you are below that, he will never be able to have anything regarding a friendly attitude or even a certain level of tolerance towards your person. He simply will not be able to do that because he only respects strength. And he spoke about that in the past. I think he had a video where he spoke about being bullied by his older brother. That's typical. Usually when you get bullied, one of two things happen. You either become a victim of strength or you become an aficionado. But if you become someone who espouses strength, you're going to become a seeker of strength. And once you get it, anyone who doesn't have it or refuses to get it, you're going to just be disgusted by. You won't become a bully, mind you, but you won't want to have anything to do with them because they're going to remind you of what you used to be. And in a sense, it's those two dimensions I was talking about. It's not a good look on you. They look at you and they think, well, I did it, so why can't you do it? It's the reason why I said also that Boogs is not the type of person that is going to motivate you to get somewhere because to him, if you can't climb the mountain, he's already at the top. He's just looking at you climb. If you die, you die. If you make it, you make it. You're his equal now. Do you want to be his equal? No, that's not the goal. Because again, we're not aiming to become the Boogs. The goal is not to become his copycat. The goal is to climb the mountains for ourselves. But if you can understand some of the wisdom I try to pass and impress upon you within that video, by using the figure of the Rick and what I perceive to be his character, then I think you're going to be able to actually get some of that for yourself because he is one that sticks to his convictions and therefore only respects people who also stick to theirs. What is your conviction? What is that fire in your heart? Do you have one? If you don't understand that, this is what's needed. If you want to be able to stand on equal footing with other men that you see as role models, it means you're going to have to become the role model. And at this point, again, you won't have to learn anything from them anymore. You will become one who teaches. And you can learn that lesson from many different sources in life. Rick is one of them, but we're going to continue in this series of videos because there are many other people that maybe they're not, even though they might not be on the same level as the Boogs, they can still teach us things. We are all in this quest to build a character, and we are all, in a sense, also going to learn a lot from someone who has a strong identity. We're not talking about morality here. I'm not telling you that the people I'm going to talk about are good people. I'm not even going to tell you they are intelligent or right. I'm just going to tell you that they are strong. They have identity. They have something we can look at and try to replicate. We can look at the methods and the wisdom that they have, and we can try to make it our own. Again, not to please them, not to please the wood, but to please ourselves, to become our best selves. And for that, Pearls of Wisdom is the way to go. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you have any names that you would want me to actually review, let me know. I have a pretty decent list of names already, but I will see you again with another one in a month.
So, on the line! Get a little better, get a little tougher. Let's go!